As effective as Google Maps might be, you can't use it for everything, especially not trade-specific work like oyster farming. But it looks like this farmer from Australia decided to take matters into his own hands. People surprise us every day with their inventions. That's why in this video, we're gonna talk about how this man created his own little map for oyster farmers and how the app's doing now. First off, an app to find oysters. Let's take a little trip 4 years back. Ewan McAsh was an oyster farmer in New South Wales who had been doing it for a long time. He got tired of all the time it took to find oysters. He said that it could take hours and it was dependent on the tide. Just very stressful. You get the idea. That's why he decided he'd come up with an easier way to find oysters so he could catch a break from all that working. It took him some time, but with a couple of other people and a software developer, he managed to make an app for the task. In an interview, he said that the whole method behind oyster farming was to know where they were and what time they had to come back to harvest or inspect them. It's like Google Maps, but for oceanic farming. That's pretty cool if you ask us. Second, what else do we know about the app? It's called Ocean Farmer, and it's used by oyster farmers everywhere. It's basically a digital tool that'll help farmers be much better at what they do and share the knowledge they have about running a farm. It gives them more time with their families and helps them keep track of where the oysters are and what care they need. Sometime after he had launched the app, McAsh reported farmers had told him that they were spending up to 50% less time on the water and up to 7 hours a week less time communicating information that's already known. The basic takeaway here is that it's just saved them a lot of time. What impact does it have today? Ocean Farmer's an incredibly popular app. Seriously, almost 70 farmers have downloaded the app, from the Clyde River in Scotland to the Marlborough Sounds in New Zealand and across to the UK, and the owner's planning on getting that number to 700 by next year. Most of the interest came from America's growing sustainable aquaculture industry. In California, Heidi Gregory's life changed forever when she found the app. After her father's death, she tried pretty hard to manage Batemans Bay Oysters, which is one of the oldest oyster companies in the area. The company manages to get 2 million oysters every year, and they were one of the first to use McAsh's technology. In an interview, Gregory even said that she had struggled a lot to plan a good system to find the oysters, but nothing worked until the app changed her life. She shared that the app even tells you how long the oysters have been on some line, and that it's pretty simple to use. Sustainable oyster farming in general is pretty important, and so is carrying more research into this area. Off-bottom oyster aquaculture is growing a lot in the US because raw oysters are becoming more popular in the market for premium half shells. But there are risks to this type of oyster farming because the oysters need to be handled often to improve their quality. Also, how are people using it on Clyde River? Back in McAsh's own home, the farmers of the river are making use of this cool new tech as much as they can. The farmers can now process up to 1,000 oyster baskets a day at McAsh's joint lease, which spans 200 separate spots along the river. It's easy to see how people may get overwhelmed with the variety of data shown by a list that includes 16 various sizes of crops and 8 distinct crops. As McAsh himself said, the whole idea is to not have to remember everything, which makes them more efficient every day. The Australian digital technology was first made for oysters, but now it can also be used for mussels and seaweed. Obviously, without it, his farm wouldn't have been able to survive the floods, COVID-19 pandemic, and bushfires that have hit the industry in the past 2 years. Finally, McAsh has big plans for his app. This former farmer and now big-time tech CEOs shared his plans for the app that he rebranded from Smart Oysters into Ocean Farmer earlier this year. He's now formed a partnership with Greenwave, which will both promote the app with the $15 million he'll get from them, as well as sustainable farming. Because obviously, being environmentally conscious is all the rage for big companies. Kidding. Still, he's said that he wants to add the thousands of mussel, oyster, and seaweed farms that aren't on the app yet. He doesn't just want to grow the app though. McAsh cares about the industry as a whole and believes that sustainable practices will help make the industry last longer. Also, because it's super important for the whole South Coast, he added that it attracts a lot of people to the area and gives employment to many locals. In the same breath, he also said that oysters were a super sustainable source of meat. Of course, it's not all about promoting seafood. He visited America for a meeting recently, and now he's even planning on moving there with his family. Talk about being ambitious. Thank God for digital technology, because now farmers are able to double their output and farm more sustainably. He also added that they don't have to work 7 days a week anymore. Less work is always something to celebrate. It's pretty cool if you think about it. This guy made an app to solve the problem he was having with farming, but because of how clever his thinking was, he managed to help thousands of farmers all over the world. As far as the cost of the subscription is concerned, it's somewhere between $95 and $375 per month, depending on the package you choose. And here's some other related news you might have missed out on. First off, the ultimate navigation map. Everybody uses maps. We can't think of a single person who doesn't, and it looks like Google's got big plans to expand so that the next generation keeps using it. Part of that meant appealing to environmentally conscious young people. For example, last year, Google Maps in the United States and Canada added an eco-friendly way to find the best route. The search giant said earlier this month that the same feature is also going live in Germany, and that more European countries will soon follow. The eco-friendly routing model gives Google Maps users alternative routes that are supposed to reduce their carbon footprint and help them use less gas. The eco-friendly routes can be used instead of the fastest routes, and in some cases, they could be the default option for navigation. Here's how the environmentally friendly route works. First of all, the whole process can be broken down into 4 main steps. Google uses data from the US Department of Energy's National Renewable Laboratory, specifically the Route E technology and FastSim data, to figure out how the eco-friendly routing affects emissions. The first step in the whole process is to simulate how fuel efficient a vehicle will be based on the different powertrain options. In other words, Google uses FastSim data to figure out how much fuel a car uses on different types of roads under real-world conditions. Second, embarrassed on Google Street View. Google Street View is a pretty cool invention, but let's be real, catches a lot of people doing a lot of things they shouldn't be doing. Recently, in a famous TikTok video, a user showed herself hungover through the Street View. We're not gonna lie, the video itself was pretty hilarious. You can see her stumbling as she collects takeout from her driveway. At the end of the video, she even lip-synced Keira Knightley, saying, "I look quite pretty." Okay, but on a serious note, even though many people think it's a badge of honor to be on Google Maps, there have been complaints about security and privacy all over the world since Google Maps came out in 2005 and Street View came out in 2007. Privacy advocates have shown how people have been photographed doing things that some people find controversial, like sunbathing in bikinis, protesting at abortion clinics, and leaving strip clubs. This made things worse in residential neighborhoods. Since July 2022, India has allowed the Street View feature. This means that pictures can be taken in 10 cities in India, including Delhi and Bangalore. In 2011, Google started taking pictures in Bangalore, but the police stopped them because they were worried about safety. Finally, the Sabahan landmark problem. Maps are always political. That's why it wasn't surprising at all when the Sabah Deputy Chief Minister complained about the landmarks being placed under the area owned by the Philippines. Yikes. Sure, it might look like a simple mistake, but it could create some serious issues because the minister thinks that this could confuse people about who the land really belongs to. He added that it would raise doubts among tourists who search for the place on Google Maps and end up in the Philippines. That's not all though. Not so long ago, a lot of local landmarks had the Philippines added to their names on the application. Still, Google's changed the names of the landmarks since the complaint. That's a wrap for this video. Do you think there should be better ways of navigating different places? Let us know in the comments below. Make sure to give this video a thumbs up and subscribe to our channel for more videos like this. See you in the next one.